You said, and I quote, LDL cholesterol unequivocally causes atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. I want you to explain this so simply a 5-year-old can understand it.
Absolutely. So one thing is that, for your listeners who are not like, because it just depends on your algorithm. Some listeners may be like, I've never heard of this. And some of your listeners may be like, actually, I've heard many times that it doesn't cause cardiovascular disease.
Someone on Instagram said that's not true at all.
So LDL cholesterol, so when we talk about coronary artery disease.
And I'm going to interrupt you just 1 second because I just want to clarify. If there's a single person you should listen to on this topic, on LDL, on cholesterol, on heart health, please, for the love of God, listen to this woman right here. Like this isn't another random person on Instagram. This is one of the most highly qualified individuals in this field. Please listen.
So nice of you.
Keep going. I apologize.
Well, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Well, so LDL cholesterol. So when we talk about coronary artery disease and when we talk about atherosclerosis in general, even paring it back a little bit, what is atherosclerosis? So when you look at the vessel wall, whether it's the vessel wall in the arteries in the heart, so the coronary arteries, or the arteries that go to the legs, or the arteries that go to the brain, or the arteries that go to your genitals, all of these arteries have like a similar structure, and the only substrate required to cause coronary artery disease is an elevated, what we call this atherogenic lipoprotein. That means the lipoproteins that get into the vessel wall and cause plaque buildup. And that is LDL cholesterol and what's called ApoB. And without diving too deep into it so your listeners don't tune out or fall asleep, essentially every LDL particle has a certain amount of LDL cholesterol in it, and every LDL particle has an ApoB. So the reason why I mention ApoB is because some of your followers may hear one or the other.
It's a huge term and it's important.
It's important. But yeah, so they essentially, for all intents and purposes, they're used interchangeably. There is some nuance between ApoB and LDL cholesterol, but every LDL particle has an ApoB. Now, that is the only thing required to cause coronary artery disease is for those atherogenic lipoproteins to get in the vessel wall. And so why do people say, well, if I don't have high blood pressure or diabetes, doesn't matter what my LDL is? And that's false, because the only thing that's required to develop atherosclerosis is elevated, cholesterol of these lipoproteins. That being said, things like diabetes and high blood pressure and smoking raise the risk of developing cardiovascular disease because the endothelial lining, the lining of the vessel, is weakened, and at a lower threshold, cholesterol particles can get into the vessel wall. But the reason why the same underlying etiology for coronary artery disease is the same underlying etiology for the vast majority of, for example, vascular erectile dysfunction and peripheral artery disease, because the same way cholesterol builds up in the vessels that go to the brain, it's the same way cholesterol builds up in the vessels to the genitals and the vessels to the legs. And so the magic of this in that cardiovascular disease prevention, by preventing coronary artery disease, we can try to prevent plaque buildup with cholesterol buildup in the vessels in the whole body. And so with regards to LDL cholesterol causing cardiovascular disease, it's really interesting because I feel like I live in two worlds. I live in the academic cardiology world where, we go to the American College of Cardiology conference, the American Society of Preventive Cardiology conference, the AHA conference, and, European Society of Cardiology conference. And at our big academic meetings with cardiologists from all over the world, there's absolutely no debate whether or not LDL cholesterol and ApoB causes coronary disease. There's literally no debate. There's actually no floor to how low we want someone's LDL, right? The debate only exists on the internet and in these spaces, but in actual scientific world, and this isn't just the US, this is the Canadian Society of Cardiology, European Society of Cardiology, South America. This is worldwide. There's consensus and expertise. And this is based on not just one study, two studies. This is based on decades and decades of research, ranging from Mendelian randomization studies, genetic studies, actual exposure studies, lipid lowering studies, and so that's unequivocal. And so it's interesting though, because the misinformation is powerful, and even though this is not debated at all in scientific area, and even saying with me hedging to say, I did mention scientific uncertainty. We don't have uncertainty about this, actually. This is very much something that has been demonstrated and replicated over decades and decades of time. And so, it is one of those things that the misinformation, though, does kind of have legs of its own. And sometimes when you log onto the internet or onto Instagram or X or TikTok, you may think like, oh my God, where have I been that suddenly there's like a new wave of this rumor? And it's good. I tell doctors all the time that it's good to have a pulse on what's going on social media, because that's where our patients are getting a lot of their information.